What I want to talk about is the differences in parenting styles between couples. Lots of couples have potentially different styles of parenting and they want to parent differently. This is usually based on their own childhood, how they were born and brought up, their own experiences, what it was like for them. And sometimes they don't really pay attention to how they are parenting. And sometimes because they're not paying attention, when a situation presents itself, they think it on the spot and just deliver the same thing that was given to them when they were younger or when they were in that same situation. And sometimes they don't even think it through, they just do what's necessary. And sometimes people don't give a thought to the differences. On the other hand, the lady might also had a different type of parenting, and so they too don't really think it through. They just come up with on the moment thoughts and just deliver it. And sometimes they can clash. Take for instance, I was going through someone's page and post the other day, not a page, and the person was saying something about how their toddler was always um thank you for joining. Their toddler was always, throwing tantrums, crying for things, asking for things, and the husband just couldn't understand why are we indulging her. She, on the other hand, kept saying, "Oh, look, she's communicating something. Let's listen to her, and we don't necessarily have to yell." At some point, the husband felt like the lady was indulging their toddler, and that are we not spoiling her? And they kind of got into a little bit of an argument. It wasn't really bad because she said she started asking questions. She started asking her husband, why do you think that we have to yell or hit her because she asked for a biscuit and she's throwing tantrum about it? And that opened up a little bit of kind of worms, and then they were able to deal with it together and came to an agreement in terms of how they were going to parent together. Some people get lucky before they get married; they're already talking about how we're going to parent. Are we going to get our kids to go to the same church with us? Are we going to hit, or are we going to not hit? They kind of get on the same page before they get married. People are lucky that way. These days, a lot of people are really intentional. On the other hand, some people already find themselves in marriage and they don't know, but there's still a chance for you to discuss it out and create what I will call a family culture and structure of how to deal with um, a certain argument or a certain behavior. What happens when this happens? How are we going to deal with it? Are we going to raise our child by yelling and hitting, or are we going to raise our child using love? I don't want to use the word gentle parenting because when people hear gentle parenting, people just I don't know whether it's a buzzword. Buzzwords are quite common in our society these days. When people hear gentle parenting, the first thing on their head is like, "Oh, you want me to spoil my child?" or "This one is spoiling their child." I saw a picture or a post of somebody the other day saying, "If your gentle parented child comes to my house and break my TV, you are going to pay." And I felt like that when people say people are are doing gentle parenting, and they think that it is trying to get children to get away with things. I think it's important that we debunk those myths. Thank you for joining. Hello, May. Thank you for joining. Hi, Kemi. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I think it's important that we debunk those myths that comes with what gentle parenting is. It doesn't mean permissiveness. It doesn't mean letting them get away with consequences and lack of boundaries. That's not what gentle parenting is about. But then again, I think as a couple, it becomes more challenging if you have a different mindset about how you're going to parent. It just puts you guys against each other to some extent, but it's not supposed to be. And that's what I want to talk about today. Hello, Fisayo. Hello, Omotola, Salami. You're joining again. Thank you guys for joining. So today I'm going to be talking about differences in parenting styles. And if you have any question that you think you want to ask me regarding parenting together with your partner, and how you're going to be able to deal with the differences that you guys have in terms of, I'm not talking about differences between the both of you. That one, I'm not trained for that. I'm talking about the differences that you have when parenting your child in terms of having a different view, because it's important that as parents there is a oneness of style in front of your child. You don't want to seem disconnected, or you don't want your child to sense a sense of disunity among you guys, because there's going to be a part where the child is tilting towards the other person because they feel a little bit more loved by the other person, and then you start finding favorism and all. But you guys need to be united as couples, or as parents parenting this child. You've got to be united. So even if you're single parents and you're parenting differently from, you're not living in the same home, but you've got both parents parenting this child, you've got to look united. You've got to there's got to be unity, there's got to be oneness, there's got to be being on the same page, right? You guys have to to come to that agreement. So how do you deal with it? How do you deal with those differences where you want to parent with love, or it doesn't mean the other person does not love better, because when I say we want to parent with love, it doesn't mean that the other person wants to hit or wants to yell or wants to follow through their own pattern is hates the child more. But one thing we always have to realize is that the other person is parenting from where the place where they best know. You are parenting from the place where, so there's a part where your childhood comes to play in your parenting style. There's a part where um your knowledge too comes to play. So you've heard about parenting and you've learned a little bit more about it. You've read one or two books and you've been influenced by those books and you've decided, okay, this is how I was parented. I've learned one or two skills. I'm going to bring this on. Or you were, on the other hand, you were yelled at, you were beaten, and at the end of the day, you can say, okay, you know what, today in my own case, I want to choose to not yell at my kids. I want to choose to not hit them, and so you decide based on that. On the other case, it could have been, oh, that the parents of the other person just, used to talk down on the person, or made them silence them, and there was no room for, expressing themselves. And when they come on board in their own turn for parenting, when it reach your turn to parent, and they're like, you know what, you can't have a say in my house. I've got the final say. This is my house because that is the style. On the other hand, that could have also influenced them to say, oh, look, I didn't have a say as I was growing up. So now that I'm going to have kids, I'm going to give my children a platform so they can express themselves. So we're going to have family meetings. And your wife is like, what is this with this family meeting? Because in our own house, there was nothing like family meeting. There was nothing like, oh, let's converse. So now how can you now come together as a couple and bring that into a place of oneness? That's what I want to talk about today. So I said all of this because I'm going to be talking about how you can do that as a couple, settling those differences in parenting styles and being on the same page. I'm going to just share with you 3 points on how you can be on the same page as parents. So you and your partner, you have a child now, a toddler, a 3-year-old, a 4-year-old, 5-year-old, teenager. What you don't want to do is to seem disunited. You want to not put up a face. You want to be united in front of your child, so that it doesn't create a sense of disunity, so that it doesn't create a sense of favorism, where one person thinks, oh, this person loves me more than the other person because this person is parenting in a certain way. So if you didn't make that plan already at the beginning of your relationship, there's still a chance, even in your relationship as parents now who are co-parenting, because wherever it is that you are, whether you're single or married, or in a relationship, you're co-parenting, and so you've got to put up the same front, right? And one of the things I always like parents to realize is that it is going to be how you want your own family structure and culture to be. That is that is the pattern that you're going to use to create that similarity. It's not going to be, I mean, unless you don't put a thought to it, but let it not be based on a situation where you have not put a thought to it, where it is just the way your foundational traumatic child experience. I call it child trauma, because we all have a level of child trauma activity ongoing in our minds, in our subconscious. So it's not going to be based on that non-intentional child traumatic experience that you had, that when a situation comes up, you just act. It's going to be, okay, now we're faced with this. If, for example, we keep yelling at our 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, or maybe even our teenager, and it's not working, how do we now make it work? It's not going to be one person is yelling, one person is not, because the child will grow up and say, Mom used to yell at me, Dad didn't used to. But if you put up a unity, there's a family structure, so somebody can come up when they're older and say, oh, in my family, we didn't used to do this, so this is how it was, because my parents were always, that is what you're going to do now. Now that it's your turn to be a parent, that's what you're going to do. So how do you do that? One of the ways that you've got to bring this similarity together as a parent, as a couple, or as parents who are co-parenting, is you've got to realize that your childhood instinct would come to play. I do it, even as a parenting coach and a perinatal mental health worker. I do it sometimes. The only thing is that sometimes I bring a level of intentionality, and I be the parent, or I be the guardian, or I wanted when I was a child. And it doesn't mean that that's great. As much as you would want to be the guardian or the parent that you wanted when you were a child, sometimes you might want to strike a balance, because it might not be the way you want to do it, might not be the best healthy pattern for that child, in terms of letting them get away with things, or because you wanted to get away with things, you now make them get away with things. No, not exactly. But you're going to do it from a place where you've been given the skill to deal with it. So one of the things you have to realize first is that you're not fighting each other. Both of you are on a team, two of you against the world. That's what it's supposed to be. If you're not having that in your family, you guys should start creating it anyways. But that's story for another day. But when it has to do with your co-parenting life, it is two of you against, not against per se, but you've got to be together. So I don't know which word to use to say two of you working together for the betterment of your child. So you're not fighting each other. You are, in a way, what I would say. I mean, I don't want it to look like you want to lose yourself, because sometimes our childhood, our personal experiences make us who we are. But if you looked at it and say and thought to yourself that this childhood pattern that I have noticed that has happened in my life over the years and is repeating itself, is not something I really want to be a part of my life. So now I don't want to yell, but sometimes I find myself yelling. Say, for instance, you're there. I don't want to hit, but sometimes I find myself, I can't, I'm not able to master my emotions to the point where I know that, oh, look, I should take a deep breath, or I should leverage on a certain technique to deal with the situation. And I should, take that few steps first before reacting. I should respond instead of actually reacting. You've not gotten to that place yet, but you know that each time you express yourself in a certain way as a parent, you start feeling bad. You start hoping, oh, I should have done that differently. Oh, I shouldn't have gone all the way like that. I shouldn't have done this. I should have taken a deep breath. Maybe I should have asked, am I right? Because sometimes when you finish all the, you finish all the noise and the screaming and the yelling and the beating, and then you're like, I should have dealt with that better. Now, if you're in that position, that's amazing, because you're already in a place where you're wondering, how could I have done that better? And so now, if you're in that position, now it is you fighting that old you. It's you fighting that old childhood pattern. I don't want to call it childhood experience, because our experiences are valuable as children. They are so valuable. They're the things that make us who we are as we grow up to become adults. But if you're in that position, the fight that you are fighting with your partner in terms of how you should parent, or the differences in that parenting style, is not against your partner. It is against that thing or that person or that expression or that um behavior that you are trying not to be like. So first of all, it's important that we get that into our head, just so that we know that, oh, I'm not fighting my partner, or my partner is not against me. That's what they know how best to do. Okay, so it is us working to fight that. So it's important to get that out of the way when it has to do with those differences. Another thing that we should be doing is alignment. And alignments do not happen except conversations happen. I am a big fan of communicating and talking about everything. So you want to ask questions. Why does this make you feel this way? Why do you think that it is great for um for you to yell? Why do you think that you cannot communicate this thing without yelling? Or why do you think that a child um has has to be yelled at for them to learn, or for them not to feel spoiled? Gotten value so far? Drop for me in the comment section.